Story 1. Micromanager. I had to deal with this recently. I walked away after this person told me I was doing my job wrong 5 times and redid it in front of me. Fortunately, I no longer have to work with them because they are now at a different store. Story 2. One-uppers. You tell them your dog died, and they say, "My dog died twice, and then I got hit by a truck." You can't just sit in your moment. They always have to make it about themselves. Story 3. Anyone who would go out of their way to harm someone else. You do not have to humiliate a coworker, scold your server, or yell at your children just because you can. Learn to control those impulses. Story 4. Passive-aggressive people, or those who avoid stating what they want or their issues directly, cause confusion. If you want or do not want something or like or dislike something, just say it. I will not be offended if you are straightforward but kind. I cannot read your mind, and you will only make yourself more upset while I remain confused. Story 5. Extroverts who fall into the social vampire category are people who feel completely miserable unless they have someone's full attention. Story 6. Left lane regulators are just very insecure, power-hungry people. We have signs everywhere that say left lane for passing only, but I guess the laws don't apply to them. They have to feed those insecurities. Story 7. The person who masks their meanness with fake kindness and politeness. They generally talk about you behind your back, often while you are nearby. They are often found in an office setting where they pretend to be friendly, but will betray you at the first chance they get if it means gaining attention from the manager. Story 8. The person who cannot shut up and listen for a minute and never gives another person a chance to speak. Story 9. People without empathy have the attitude of, "I got mine, you're on your own," especially when their success harms others. Another issue is not recognizing the advantages you had and the disadvantages someone else had to overcome that you did not. For me, it is frustrating to see people disparaging diversity, equity, and inclusion and saying they worked hard and had nothing handed to them. That is usually true, but they do not recognize the additional challenges others faced. They do not understand that diversity, equity, and inclusion do not mean people are given opportunities without being qualified for educational programs, jobs, or other areas. I get frustrated that people do not see that when we lift each other up, including those different from us, we all benefit. You may not know or interact with people or communities that use diversity, equity, and inclusion, but the more people who have economic security, the better the economy. Resources become more plentiful, which can positively impact everyone financially. For example, having more medical personnel available can meet the demand for doctors, making it easier for people to receive medical care and treatment. Trickle-down economics does not work, but evenly distributed benefits across multiple communities grow and benefit all. Story 10. People who chew with their mouth open while explaining non-fungible tokens and interrupting you to tell you they are an expert. Story 11. People who bring up irrelevant topics during a conversation when I am trying to address a concern, and people who think it is necessary to pass me just to get a car ahead. In other words, immature and inconsiderate people. Story 12. Condescending and passive-aggressive. Tell me how you feel without talking down to me or acting like it is not a big deal, but it is a big deal to you, and I am supposed to know this. Story 13. A person who causes problems and then goes to new people who do not know them yet, hoping to get close before their real behavior shows. They are not interested in changing, only in finding new people who do not know enough about them to stay away. Story 14. People who post thoughts and prayers, please. I could really use them right now publicly. And when someone asks what is wrong, they just reply with, "I do not want to talk about it. Please be respectful." Story 15. Successful people who were born on third base and think they hit a home run. Being successful when you had every advantage in the world does not impress normal people. Story 16. Good Christians. Almost every time I have been wronged by someone since I moved to Alabama nearly 30 years ago, it has been by one of them. Two-faced, hypocritical, backstabbing, judgmental, cliquey, scheming, thieving, talking out of both sides of their mouths, followers of Christ who would not help you even if you were in dire need after they stole your wallet. Yes, there are some honestly good ones, but I have found that the overwhelming majority of them, at least here, are just really bad people who want to appear better than they are. Story 17. People go out of their way to look for ways to get offended. Most people try their best, but some go out of their way to nitpick an aspect of someone that may be unchangeable and give them a hard time. Story 18. Ignorant people who think they know everything. I understand that college, reading, and curiosity are not for everyone, but your uneducated opinions are worthless. Yes, vaccines work. No, not all people who live in cities are murderers and gang members. Story 19. Most of them these days are specifically arrogant people, obnoxiously loud people, people who have to be the center of attention, churchgoers, fake churchgoers, and certainly any supporters of the Red Hat movement. Story 20. Know-it-alls and takers. People who are constantly taking or trying to get something for free, taking advantage of those around them. Gross behavior. Story 21. I am always right because I trust my instincts, and no one can tell me I am wrong until something smacks me in the face. Trusting your instincts is good, but to completely bury your head in the sand and convince yourself that you are always right can sometimes be infuriating to watch. Story 22. People who believe they are intelligent but are actually uninformed or influenced, or who are proud of their lack of knowledge. Story 23. The controlling, pseudo-intellectual, superior type that condescends and constantly makes insulting, lighthearted jabs, whose time is far too valuable to listen to someone else talk as much as they do. Story 24. What I like to call, you cannot argue with idiots. I mean the people who are obviously in the wrong, and when you try to argue with them, they give some nonsensical answer that you literally cannot respond to because it is so ridiculous. Then that makes them think they have won. Middle schoolers. Story 25. Loud people literally hurt my ears. I cannot stand being around loud people, especially in the morning. Story 26. People who want your help with something, but do not want to offer any payment for your assistance. Story 27. People who are emotionally inept, broken, immature, or evil and cannot or will not apologize for anything ever. I do not care if they were taught this or grew up with parents who behaved this way. As adults, we are all capable of learning new ways. This behavior is unacceptable. Period. Story 28. Entitled rude individuals, especially those who say something like, "Now that was uncalled for," after you respond to their behavior with equal intensity. Story 29. I am okay if people can be unpleasant from time to time. Life happens. It is the people who are constantly disrespectful and seem to be proud of it. I would argue that being unpleasant for no reason would make one disrespectful if they keep it up. I guess it is rather subjective for me. Story 30. People who genuinely cannot see past their nose. If it is not about them, they are not interested or just pretend before bringing it back to themselves. Story 31. Those who always see themselves as victims have mental health issues and constantly think about themselves. They always want attention and sympathy. It is incredibly draining. Story 32. Conspiracy theorists, moon landing denial, anti-vaccination activists, September 11th truthers, Pizzagate believers, flat earthers, chemtrail believers, and others. Moronic, gullible narcissists. Story 33. I overheard a grown man, maybe around 50 years old, on a Microsoft Teams call at work today say, "It's a caravan, but let me put it like this, it's bigger than most people's houses. Leave and find work elsewhere." Story 34. People who are slow. I do not mean mentally handicapped. I mean literally just slow thinking and acting. Slow driving, walking slowly, slow decision-making, and overall inconveniencing others. Too many people walk around completely unaware of their surroundings with no care about others. Story 35. People who lack intellectual curiosity, a growth mindset, consideration for others and empathy, the ability to let other people into their one-sided conversations, the ability to regulate their emotions, and the ability to take responsibility for their actions. Story 36. People who cannot properly communicate their needs and once leave you guessing about what they expect from you. Also, people who tell you you are family and then turn out to be fair-weather friends. Story 37. People who know the correct way to live would share it with you if you would just listen. My life is my own to waste or use as I please, as is yours. Story 38. Judgmental people are those who say their thoughts out loud and make you feel insecure, causing you not to want to be yourself around them. Story 39. People who gauge someone's value or contribution to society based on how much paid work they do quickly fall into eugenics when people adopt various forms of extremism. Both research and many people's lived experiences have shown that there are many ways to contribute to communities. Story 40. Those types in online competitive games such as Fortnite, Call of Duty, Rocket League, and similar who get so angry when their team loses. It just makes the game unenjoyable. It's not like you're losing anything. Just chill out. It's just a game. Also, those people who get involved in arguments by stirring them up and causing more trouble, then step out and say they don't want to get involved. Also, people who are good-looking and act like they know it as well. I mean, those guys who post thirst traps of themselves and say things like, "You know you love me," and people who post pictures of artificial intelligence online and try to convince everyone it's real just for attention. Cool, you typed a few words into a generator. Well done. Why should we recognize you for that? Story 41. People who want to tell me about their million-dollar ideas of selling Christmas trees in June in Las Vegas are missing the point. You drain the energy from the room, and the only people interested in your ideas are those who share the same mindset and want to modify your proposal to include shipping basketballs to Fiji. If you need substances to be social, do a small amount and stop overdoing it. Your energy is draining, and you are not as impressive as you think. Story 42. People who chew with their mouths open and those who take out their phones or talk in a movie theater annoy me greatly. I strongly dislike such behavior. Story 43. People who talk nonstop about themselves lose interest and stop paying attention if the conversation is not about them for even a minute. Story 44. I do not like people who steal my food. I do not usually get very upset by social mistakes since I am not perfect, but someone stealing my snacks makes me very angry. Story 45. People who make a genuine mistake believe it was unintentional, but when others make mistakes, they think those people are stupid. Story 46. Manipulative people. Some individuals seem to derive pleasure from it. I do not know if it stems from a mental health issue or something else, but it suggests, I peaked in high school. Story 47. Entitled. Typically, they have not even earned what they have. Mom and dad or husband. Sickens me when people with no accomplishments pretend to be serious. Story 48. Story killers. You start your story, and they hijack it with their similar story. That is the end of your story. Story 49. Straight up gossipers. Like we are not in high school anymore, and I hated it then too. Quit complaining and go handle it like an adult. For goodness sake. Story 50. Brexit voters who cannot explain any benefits of leaving the world's most successful trading bloc but still have the audacity to complain about those opposing Brexit preventing the will of the people. My contempt for them could not be deeper. Story 51. People who only want to talk at you instead of to you. I met a new neighbor yesterday, and they came to visit our house for 2 hours. They never stopped talking about themselves, never asked anything about us, and always brought the conversation back to themselves and their many ways the world has wronged them the first time they met us. Story 52. The worst manager I ever had was the kind of person who would not admit to not knowing something or admit they were wrong about something. It did not matter what the subject was. Instead of saying, I do not know, they would confidently give a wrong answer. Story 53. People who use Bluetooth speakers in public spaces. If you could afford the speaker, you could have just gotten earbuds instead. Story 54. Ones that constantly repeat what I already know and what they have already told me about 5 times before. Story 55. I might get some hate for this, but I absolutely cannot stand people who have bad anger issues and then decide to express their anger on other people or objects around them. I had an old friend with this problem, and there was one specific time when I went to the store with her and her sister to get ice cream. She kept her brother on the phone to ask him what kind of ice cream he wanted. But when he was indecisive for a few seconds, my friend said very angrily, "Just choose. It's not that hard, idiot, or I'm going to choose for you." Like, damn. I also had a coworker at my old job with the same problem. When she would walk into the office, you just would not know what to expect. She might say, "Hi everyone, I've missed you all." Or she might slam down her phone on the counter and storm off. When someone tried asking her what was wrong, she would say, I'm very upset, with no other context. It's like being around an emotional toddler. I prefer to be comfortable when talking to someone. Story 56. 1. Hypocrites. 2. Self-entitled individuals. 3. People who think the world revolves around them. 4. Those who cheat on their partners. 5. Liars. 6. People who physically abuse others and animals. 7. People who give medical advice without any medical education. 8. People who do not repay those who lend them money. 9. Parents who do not properly parent their children. 10. All the unpleasant mothers-in-law I read about here. Story 57. People who are controlling, condescending, overly talkative, and judgmental. Also, people, especially family members, who do not respect your boundaries. Story 58. People who complain about everything but do nothing to fix it, then proceed to bring it up at every opportunity and drag everyone down to their level of sour attitude. This behavior overlaps with the victim mentality in some cases. Story 59. Individuals who exploit children, especially those in positions of power such as the president of a country or similar roles. Story 60. Those who complain about being socially aware irritate me endlessly, as it is just a way of saying you do not like a multicultural society. Story 61. People who can never admit they are wrong. Everyone is wrong about something at some point in their lives, myself included. Story 62. People incapable of following a logical train of thought or doing a minimum of fact-checking. I know we do not have all day to review the constant data stream, but at least you might want to check whether immigrants are given brand new iPhones and accommodated in 5-star hotels. Story 63. People who cover their cars with bumper stickers to express their personality to anyone behind them. Story 64. People with low self-esteem can be difficult to understand. They tend to be judgmental of others, lie to cover up, and are often jealous and may sabotage you. If you have low self-esteem, possibly related to abuse or other reasons, I am not trying to insult you. I am sharing my personal experience with people who told me or whom I recognized as having low self-esteem. I befriended them to support them because I noticed others tended to avoid them. I was wrong because, in the end, I was abused by them. Now I avoid them. I get along much better with people who are self-assured, like themselves, and have high self-esteem. I am not talking about arrogance. Such people do not resort to underhanded tactics. I still try to support someone's low self-esteem, but from a distance and no longer at my expense. Story 65. People who speak very loudly and authoritatively about something when uninformed drive me up the wall. Story 66. I have a hard time with people who constantly feel like they are correct and do not feel the need to take input from anyone else. Story 67. Wada Buddhists are people who shut down any general conversation by obsessively focusing on a person or situation to which an issue might not apply, instead of focusing on the actual issues. Sometimes it is important to point out people who are being excluded, but it is also necessary to be able to talk about group issues and general trends. It is okay for things to not be about you or your area of interest. Story 68. People who are out of touch with reality. I worked with a girl who would always talk about how much money her family had and where they went on holiday. I live in the United Kingdom, in a particularly low-income area where some people are struggling. It makes me angry that she couldn't read the room. Story 69. Usually people who claim to be empaths or Reiki healers. I absolutely despise casting every individual who buys into that line of life under the same shadow. That said, interactions with such people tend to be pretty consistent. You are not enlightened. You are unpleasant. I am a pretty open-minded person who is aware that there is a lot we do not understand about the mind, the universe, and the unseen power around us. You have not tapped into anything, so shut up, sit down, and lose the holier-than-thou attitude. I would rather spend my time with people humbled by knowledge, not gatekeepers. Story 70. Besides Republicans, Democrats who cross party lines to vote with Republicans on poor legislation, such as Carla Cunningham. Story 71. Egocentric, selfish, greedy, narcissistic. Practically those who do not and cannot see life beyond themselves. Story 72. Super insecure people with no self-identity. They deliberately like things you like and have no backbone. I know it is not their fault, but I do not have the patience. Story 73. Narcissistic personality disorder, also known as gaslighting. Everything Donald Trump represents. I dislike everyone who is even slightly like him. Story 74. Company employees who consistently support upper management at every turn and will report you if you are not following all the rules. This may be because they genuinely believe in the company or are trying to improve their chances for a promotion. Story 75. Two things: people who are rude to waitstaff or service personnel, and people who never ask about you. I am old enough now to realize that I do not need to have these people in my life. Story 76. Wow. This question is a no-brainer for me. I absolutely cannot stand people who do not know how to stay in their lane, also known as control freaks. I also cannot stand people with no humility, you know, the type who make a mistake but cannot say sorry. I also cannot stand people who complain nonstop about things they can fix. Story 77. People who cannot be happy for others, or who feel bothered by others' self-improvement, successes, and achievements. Story 78. There are only two things I dislike in this world: people who are intolerant of other cultures and the Dutch. Story 79. People who refuse to communicate anything until it becomes a serious problem. I have gone to many people and said, "Hey, just a heads up, I'm bad at reading social cues. If I'm ever doing anything upsetting or bothering you, please let me know immediately and I will stop or find a solution." Every single time, I am promised, "Of course, don't worry, I will." Then sometimes months later, I am met with, "Hey, you have done all these things repeatedly, and I hate you now." The worst part is that I notice little things like tone shifts or facial expressions. But I am also a very anxious person with trauma, and I often think people are mad at me when they are not. So I ask multiple times if I am doing something wrong. Not in a weird way, just, "Hey, you seem a bit uncomfortable. Did I do something wrong?" And they lie to my face. Their reasoning every time as to why they did not tell me sooner is one of two things. One, it should have been obvious. Two, they did not want to hurt my feelings. If I am talking about something that triggers you, I am not going to be offended that you tell me it is a sensitive topic. If I am being loud, I am not going to be offended if you ask me to lower my voice. If I am talking too much, honestly, I might be a bit sad if you ask me to talk less. But that is my problem, not yours. I would much rather you tell me the first time it happens so I can avoid it, rather than have it happen for months and risk you not liking me anymore. It gives me massive insecurity and distrust when people tell me I am not doing anything wrong, because many have convincingly lied to my face and said the same thing. The people who are close to me know very well that if you ask me to avoid or change something, and it is reasonable, I will do it. And it is not just me. I have seen this happen to many people I know. So please, if someone is doing something you really do not like, just tell them. Story 80. Abusive people, loud people, judgmental people, religious people, braggers, sadists, rapists, pedophiles, serial killers. Story 81. Smug people, people who think it is cool to be a bully or an unpleasant person. Narcissistic people, people who believe they are above the law. Those with a bad attitude towards anything positive. The list goes on. Story 82. One-uppers, entitled or arrogant, chronic complainers, people who are overly sexual. Not every conversation needs to be about sex, and I do not need to know about your sex life. People pleasers, victim mentality. For the love of everything holy, learn how to drive before you get in front of or behind me. Story 83. People who always know a little more than you, no matter the subject. They constantly correct you and give unwanted advice. Story 84. Entitled people. I have worked in the service industry for too long, and the number of rude people I have encountered is very disappointing. Story 85. Entitled people are those who believe they are above everyone else because they have more money or know influential individuals. They go to the doctor's office expecting to skip all the other patients who made appointments and see the doctor immediately because they have a manicure scheduled in 30 minutes. They believe they deserve everything despite doing nothing but judging others. Story 86. Oddly specific, but people who believe they are shamans or somehow divine. I have known two, a man and a woman, and both are absolutely insufferable. Story 87. People who are proud to be a bad person are not brutally honest. They are a detriment to society who thrives on hurting others. Story 88. People who argue only to win, not to gain insights from the debate. They always manipulate the situation to be in their favor. Story 89. Entitled people. People who think they are the only person on earth. People who complain about everything, including to get free items. Story 90. Smart Alex. There is almost nothing I hate more than someone with something snarky to say all the time. Story 91. Reddit moderators often have an air of superiority they pretend to possess. It is always amusing to see how quickly they crumble and throw their weight around to try to assert their authority in their fiefdom. It is truly one of the funniest things. Story 92. People who are completely unaware of themselves, but consistently criticize others for their flaws, insecurities, and weaknesses. They often present themselves as highly sensitive or empaths. Story 93. Entitled girls. Sorry, just because you look pretty to those who cater to you does not mean that I will cater to your nonsense. You are not half as pretty as your attitude would have you believe. You purposely hang out with less attractive people to inflate your ego. Spend time with genuinely attractive people, and you might learn a thing or two about class from them, along with shedding the attitude you have. No, I am not interested in you even remotely. Sigh. Story 94. There are only two things I hate in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch. Story 95. When my father died very young from coronavirus disease 2019, extremely painfully, slowly on a ventilator, and withered to 80 pounds, I had friends telling me about when their 92-year-old grandmother died and how they understood how it felt. No, you did not and never will. The one-uppers, that is who. Story 96. I cannot stand men who assume you want to sleep with them or send messages assuming you are going to be flirty. I am not. Story 97. Narcissists are difficult, and the only thing worse is people who make excuses for their awful behavior. Story 98. Cheaters. Be an adult and end the relationship before you reach the point where you are ready to step out on someone behind their back. Stringing someone along while betraying them is one of the most cowardly things a person can do. Story 99. People who harbor negative opinions about things, but cannot explain why and refuse to change their position when presented with opposing views. Story 100. Narcissists are people who create a massive world of problems and twist events so that you are the problem. They have no empathy and no understanding. You are being gaslit. Run. Run for the hills and value your peace of mind. Story 101. People who are full of themselves, smug, rigid about everything, as well as controlling. Story 102. CrossFit athletes, bicyclists who do not stay in their lanes, and motorcyclists who think they own the road. Story 103. People who are two-faced pretend to be friendly when you are around them, but when you are not, they are mean and say bad things behind your back to others. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.